All right, class, grab your seats and settle in. Welcome to today's explainer. Today we are going to unpack what is arguably the ultimate crucible of human endurance, ancient Sparta. We're moving past all the Hollywood myths and diving straight into forging the Spartan legend, inside the Agoge, to figure out how these legendary warriors were actually made. We're going to break down the exact training, the grueling tactics, and those monumental clashes that literally etch their names into eternity. So let's dive right into this. To start, I really want you to use your imagination for a second. Try to picture this. You are exactly 7 years old. Now, most kids at that age, and you can probably remember when you were 7, right? They spend their days playing, learning the absolute basics, just enjoying the safety of their homes. But not you. Today, you leave your family behind. The playtime? It's officially over. You're entering one of the absolute harshest military training systems ever recorded in human history. And the scary reality is, many of the kids who enter alongside you just won't survive. But if you do make it through, you become a Spartan Warrior. This terrifying destination was known as the Agoge. So what was it? Basically a brutal training system designed specifically to create elite warriors. And as we just talked about, it started the very second a child turned 7. You have to understand, this wasn't just a tough school, it was an absolute crucible. From the exact moment a child was born in the ancient Greek city-state of Sparta, their entire future was decided for them. There was absolutely no picking your career path. You were destined for the Agoge, which was a relentless system meant to completely strip away any softness and forge you into a literal instrument of the state.
Now, the visceral reality of what these kids faced on a daily basis is just staggering. As a trainee, you didn't get a nice warm bed, you slept on the hard ground. You received very, very little food, which meant you were kept in a constant gnawing state of hunger. And pain, you were expected to endure physical pain without uttering a single complaint. Every single day was a massive test of your physical and mental limits, and any perceived weakness was severely punished. So we aren't just talking about building physical strength here, we're talking about engineering an elite, almost superhuman level of mental toughness from a terribly young age.
Okay, so you're probably wondering, how did anyone actually survive this? Well, the cruelty wasn't just happening for the sake of being cruel. It was highly, highly calculated. Enduring those minimal supplies forced the next crucial steps of survival. You had to build unbreakable teamwork, and you had to rely entirely on your peers. Think about it. When you are starving and freezing, you literally have to lean on the kid next to you to survive. The Spartans fundamentally believed that a warrior is only ever as strong as the soldier beside him. This shared, daily suffering forged an unbreakable bond of collective trust. And that trust? It would become absolutely essential out on the battlefield. All right, class, time for a quick pop quiz. Let's see who's following along. As the years passed inside the Agoge, the training didn't get easier. It only became harder and more relentless. We actually know from our historical sources that a lot of trainees simply quit, or they entirely failed the intense physical and psychological trials. So, here is the question. What core Spartan value kept the successful trainees going through this daily torture? What was that psychological anchor that stopped them from just throwing their hands up and walking away? Take a quick second to think about what actually drives human beings when they are pushed to extreme conditions. Do you have a guess? The answer is honor. In Sparta, honor meant absolutely everything. I mean, everything. It was the entire foundation of their fierce discipline. You see, you didn't just endure the pain for yourself. You endured it because failing brought an unimaginable level of shame, not just on you, but on your family and your entire city. This incredibly intense societal pressure, combined with those deep bonds formed in the Agoge, created soldiers who quite literally valued their reputation and their honor way more than their own physical comfort, or even their own lives. As you can probably guess, building this kind of elite warrior required a staggering investment of time. Let's look at the timeline. At birth, your future is entirely locked in. At age 7, you are ripped away from your family to face the absolute horrors of the Agoge. And you aren't actually accepted into the official Spartan army until age 20. Guys, that is 13 solid years of brutal, unrelenting training. 13 years of sleeping in the dirt, starving, and fighting before you even officially get to call yourself a soldier. By the time a Spartan was 20, he wasn't just a regular man anymore, he was a highly tuned, fiercely disciplined weapon. So, now that we have this fully trained soldier, how did they actually fight? Well, a single, solitary soldier, no matter how incredibly strong or well-trained they were in the Agoge, is still vulnerable on their own. But the Spartans didn't fight as solitary heroes looking for individual glory. No way. They fought as the shield wall. All of that intense teamwork and reliance on their peers that was drilled into them since they were 7, it all culminated right here. Collective trust was their true weapon. They knew for a fact that breaking formation, just to show off or act independently, meant instantly exposing the man next to them to danger.
They fought, quite literally, as a wall of shields and spears. This is the legendary phalanx formation. I want you to imagine being an enemy soldier facing this down. You aren't fighting a loose, chaotic group of men. You are fighting a synchronized, heavily armored machine. Each Spartan warrior stood closely, shoulder to shoulder, his large shield tightly interlocking with his neighbor's shield, creating this nearly impenetrable bronze wall. And from behind that wall, a terrifying forest of spears thrust outward. Because of their absolute discipline and their total refusal to break rank, that collective trust kept the entire formation unbreakable in close combat. Now, because of this unmatched discipline and the brutal, mechanical efficiency of the phalanx, the Spartans developed a terrifying reputation across the ancient world. It was basically a known fact. If Spartans are coming, a battle is near. Their enemies knew exactly what they were up against. They knew these were men forged in the literal fires of the Agoge, men who valued honor way over their own lives, and men who would not break their shield wall under any circumstances. Honestly, just the rumor of a Spartan army marching in your direction was usually enough to completely break the morale of an opposing force. Which brings us perfectly to our next major section for today, Thermopylae, the ultimate challenge.
To really understand this conflict, we have to look at the sheer, terrifying scale of it. On one side, you have the massive size and the seemingly endless resources of the Persian Empire. Then, on the other side, a small force of Spartans, led by King Leonidas, with highly limited resources. It is the absolute ultimate David versus Goliath scenario. From a purely logical, mathematical standpoint, the Spartans had absolutely no business even stepping onto that battlefield. But remember what we learned. These men were defined by their honor and their intense discipline, not by basic math.
Their strategy was surprisingly simple but incredibly dangerous. Hold the narrow pass at Thermopylae. By choosing a narrow geographical bottleneck, King Leonidas was actually able to completely neutralize the massive size of the Persian army. The Persians couldn't surround them at all. They had to face the Spartan shield wall head-on. For days, the Spartans fought in searing heat. Wave after wave of enemy soldiers furiously attacked the phalanx. But because of that deep collective trust and their unyielding discipline, the Spartans absolutely refused to retreat. They just held the line. Eventually, as history tells us, the pass was outflanked, but instead of dropping their weapons and fleeing, they stood their ground. They fought right alongside King Leonidas to the very bitter end. They refused to retreat even when death was an absolute, undeniable certainty against impossible odds. And you know, this ultimate sacrifice is exactly what transformed them from just being great soldiers into eternal legends. They knew they were going to die, but their Agoge training, that absolute, unwavering commitment to honor in the man standing next to them, meant that running away was simply never an option.
And honestly, this is exactly why we are still talking about them thousands of years later, in classrooms just like ours today. The Spartan name survives in our history books, in movies, and even in our video games. History doesn't remember them because they had the largest army or the richest, biggest empire. It remembers them because they represented discipline, sacrifice, and determination. They are literally the historical gold standard for mental toughness. They prove to the world that a small, fiercely united group of individuals can echo through eternity. So as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought. Knowing everything we just discussed, the freezing hard ground, the constant starvation, the absolute reliance on your peers, holding those heavy shields, and the heavy expectation of ultimate sacrifice, ask yourself honestly, would you have survived the Agoge? The Spartan legend is absolutely incredible, but it was purchased at an immense, agonizing personal cost for every single child who walked into that system. So think about that the next time you hear the word Spartan. All right, class dismissed, and I will see you all in the next explainer.